Good morning. And welcome to the Fall 2025 Shoukry Leadership Speaker Series, a fall UGA signature lecture. My name is Ben Longren. I'm a senior Leonard Leadership Scholar with the Institute for Leadership Advancement, studying economics. This lecture series features well-known leaders who share their unique leadership styles and experiences to educate and inspire our students. Today's honored speaker, Andrew T. Cathy, will participate in a discussion moderated by Haley Franz, an ILA Leonard Leadership Scholar. The namesakes of the Shoukry Leadership Speaker Series, Paul and Amy Shoukry, are unable to be with us this morning. Paul is a loyal University of Georgia alumnus and ILA Leonard Leadership Scholar. This lecture series reflects one of Paul's passions and an essential component of the UGA experience, leadership. We are indebted to Paul and Amy for their generosity in supporting this lecture series and for all they do for the University of Georgia. We are glad to have President Moorhead, Provost Ayers, and Terry's interim dean, Shantu Chatterjee, in the audience this morning. Thank you for joining us today. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce a distinguished alumnus of the University of Georgia and an extraordinary business and community leader, Mr. Andrew T. Cathy. Mr. Cathy is an individual who leads one of America's most well-known and values-driven companies with purpose, integrity, and a vision for the future. Andrew T. Cathy is the Chief Executive Officer of Chick-Fil-A, Inc., one of the nation's largest family-owned businesses. As only the third CEO in the company's history, Mr. Cathy continues a remarkable legacy, following in the footsteps of his father, Dan T. Cathy, and his grandfather, S. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. Mr. Cathy's journey with the company began long before he took the helm. After starting his Chick-fil-A career in 2005 as an operator in St. Petersburg, Florida, he went on to serve in several key roles, including franchisee consultant, leader of franchisee selection, chief people officer, and executive vice president of operations. His extensive experience, both in restaurants and at the support center, has uniquely equipped him to guide Chick-fil-A into its next era as a healthy, purpose-driven, global organization. A proud graduate of the University of Georgia, Mr. Cathy has also completed executive studies at Stanford University and the Families in Business program at Harvard Business School. Under his leadership, Chick-fil-A continues to focus not only on operational excellence, but also on making a lasting positive impact on the people and communities it serves. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Andrew T. Cathy.
Great to be here.
Good morning, and welcome to the Shoukry Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Haley Franz, and I'm a Leonard Leadership Scholar studying Marketing and Management Information Systems. I'll be facilitating today's discussion. Thank you so much for being here. So excited to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Cathy, you grew up...
Just call me Andrew.
Okay.
We're first name basis, we're good.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, you grew up immersed in Chick-fil-A, seeing the business from the inside as a young child. When did you first realize that leading the company would be your future?
Oh, it was a clear date. October 20th, 2020 is when that became. It wasn't something ever discussed. We never talked about it. It wasn't something that I was aspiring to do. Did grow up in the business. I was born in '78, so we grew a lot in the '70s and '80s in malls. And so my dad traveled a lot. And so I traveled a lot with him as a kid, going to those grand openings. And I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I think, was probably my earliest to remember working in the back of the restaurant. And they'd stack 2 pickle buckets on top of each other because I was so short, and I'd stand there and fillet chicken. And once I could memorize all the product descriptions, they let me sample nuggets on the lease line, which I liked a lot better because a lot of older girls and gave you a lot of attention, and so I much preferred being out on the lease line, but I've had a lot of opportunities to work. But it wasn't until October 2020 started having those conversations. And I had led people, a department for a while, so I was really big in succession planning and talking about the future. And went in with a meeting with my dad and our president at that time, and was talking about different structures as we think of down the road where we need to be. Some of our senior leadership team were going to be retiring, and I met with him like this periodically, but it was just different. I sat down, I looked at him, I said, hey, look, a lot of this depends on when you think you're going to retire. If you think it's 5 years, here's some structures, here's some leadership plans of what we need to do for some upcoming leaders to prepare them. If it's 25 years from now, then they'll be retired by that point, and these will be other candidates. And so he said, well, why don't we just do it now? It's like, do what now? He said, why don't we just make the transition? He said, I'll step out, you step in at the end of the year. And I was like, time out on that. Like, that's not at all why I brought it up, but I just said, we need to start thinking about what succession planning going to look like. And I genuinely had never thought about stepping into that role. Wow. Didn't even have my name on it. I just wanted to plug in and help where I could in the business. So anyway, took about a year. We kind of worked through it, and I had to think through it as well, but ended up making that transition. But to have had a chance to grow up and seeing all aspects of the business, even as a young child, and just soaking in all kind of meetings. I was homeschooled through 5th grade, and so that gave a lot of chances to travel and just sit in a lot of meetings to just get steeped into the business.
Yeah, that's so interesting to know that you weren't fully ready to take over the role, but he saw that you were ready for it, and I'm sure knowing the company like the back of your hand helped.
I think it does help. But one last tip, I know you want to keep moving. But I think that you never feel prepared for opportunities. And I would say that there were junctures along the way moving into bigger roles where I didn't feel prepared. But what helps, growth happens through stress. And you grow as a person professionally, personally, when you experience stress. And so that stress is a good thing. It makes you stronger. And as I was even contemplating this, I talked to a few other CEOs of some larger organizations that I knew and said, how did you process this? And not a single one of them ever said, I felt prepared. That was one of the things that every one of them said is, I didn't feel prepared or ready for that. But somebody said that they felt like I could do it. And so I think it's just a good lesson for all of us, as we move into professions, that there'll be opportunities you're not going to feel prepared for. But if you just dig in and learn from others, then you can grow into the role. So I think that's a big thing that's helpful for all of us, is just to learn. We have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, but learn how to grow into new roles.
Those are two great lessons, being comfortable in the uncomfortable and also seeking out advice from people that are sitting where you want to be. Mm-hmm. So I know that you graduated from UGA and also had studies at Stanford and at Harvard, but I want to know a little bit more about your UGA journey and how it shaped you. Is there a tradition or an experience here that you still enjoy or find meaningful today?
Oh man, being here on a fall Saturday, there's nothing like it. And just feeling the weather outside right now. I had a lot of great experiences here. So many great experiences. I would say, but one of my favorite was just Saturday mornings. I lived off a Gaines School Road over on the east side of town, house with duplex with 5 other guys. And that was just nasty place. I wouldn't walk out of my room without shoes on. But there was nothing like getting up on a cold Saturday morning, turning on game day, and then getting ready to walk down to watch a football game. There's nothing like it. But even walking around here in the business school, so many memories. I did a lot of my studying in the law library, and I day traded a lot in college. And so I would go in between classes to the computer labs and day trade, and just had a great time. I don't know if I should have done this, but I would see MBA classes that I wanted to learn and go talk to the professor and say, hey, can I just sit in your class? And so there's some derivatives classes that I took free, which was great, but sorry I admitted that. But.
That's so impressive. I think that we've all experienced the magic of UGA, and I love that there's that common theme of you continuing to want to be better, even going to the MBA classes. One thing that I really admire about your journey is that you started your career in the restaurant as an operator, then you moved your way to the support center, and now your way as CEO. How did those early years with hands-on experiences shape the way you make decisions as a leader of the entire company now?
It's had a profound impact. So many steps along the way, lessons learned. I was a high school teacher and coach as well for a few years after college, before jumping into the business, and a lot I learned there. But so many of those things prepared me for this in different roles. During college, I took off a semester. We were opening stores in South Africa at the time. And so I went through our training class and moved to South Africa and helped open up our 3rd location. And it was one of those leadership lessons that I learned a lot, but one in particular that just had a big impact on me. Had an individual named Serge that worked for us, and Awesome guy, really good work ethic, but started having some issues getting to work on time. And I talked to him, and I just sat him down and talked to him, and after a couple of times just said, one more time and I'm gonna have to let you go. I was like, the team depends on you. And there was another situation, and he was about 2.5 hours late for his shift. And he comes in, he's sweating. We were in a mall, really, really nice mall, sweating and very apologetic. So I just said, hey, let's go have a seat. So we went back to the office, and I just was reminding him about he's let the team down and all these different things. And before I asked, what happened? And then I said, so what happened? And then he said, I'm so sorry. He lived in Soweto, which was about a 2-hour drive from where we were, and he had different bus stops along the way, and the bus didn't come. And so he had found ways to get to the next bus stop and then had to run the last 6 miles to get there. And so just hearing what he had gone through, and some of the other challenges, I'd not stopped before just to ask, what was causing some of these challenges. And so for me as a leader, it was really important to burn deeply in me how important it is to ask somebody, what's going on first versus just jumping to the conclusion. I was frustrated because it was impacting the business and the rest of the team, but I didn't start with understanding his situation, which I should have done. And so it was one of those, there's 1,000 screw-ups that I've had along the way of hard lessons learned, but that was one of them, of just how important as a leader that you stop to ask, what happened first before you jump to conclusions.
Yeah, that's something that's great to remember as we all go into our careers, is to put yourself in someone else's shoes. I would love to ask a little bit more about your experience as a high school teacher and a coach, and how that experience is now fueling your role as a CEO. What lessons did you learn there that you've carried with you?
So I wrestled the most career-wise what I wanted to do in 8th grade. I was sitting there towards the end of 8th grade, and I was reviewing all my goals and I'm like goals, but I'd written a bunch of goals down that I wanted to accomplish by the time I finished middle school. So I was looking through those, and I was writing what I wanted to accomplish by the time I graduated high school. And I sat there and looked at it and realized my academic and athletic things that I had done, it was just kind of fleeting. I'd worked so hard for it. And then I started thinking about, compounding that 4 years later, am I going to feel fulfilled if I accomplish all those things? I had a coach that had a huge impact on my life. Right next to my parents, he's right underneath in regards to the impact on my life. And so I started seeing the impact he was having. So then I started wrestling through, did I want to be a teacher and coach? Because I thought if I could have half the impact he's having on people, then I felt like life would be a success. And luckily, my parents never put pressure. They were adamant about, you've got to do what you feel like your passions are and what you feel like God's calling you to do in your life, which was great to be able to explore that. And so I really wrestled with it. I had a deep, deep passion and love for business. I always sold stuff as a kid, legal things, but always sold stuff as a kid. And but just love business. But I was torn. So I thought, if I don't teach and coach, I'll always wonder, was that my calling? I thought it'll either confirm it's what I need to do, or it'll confirm business is where I need to be. And so I taught business classes and coached football and track. And so many lessons learned from a leadership standpoint, especially the coaching aspect. To get the very best out of somebody with one person, it takes you've got to really get to know what drives and motivates them to get their best. And a different person over here could take a totally different way you've got to approach to get the best out of them. And it's the same thing with business. There's so much coaching and teaching that's going on, but you also have to really adapt as a leader how to get the best and know that person really, really well in order to get the best out of them. Some of them need, a real aggressive way to kind of motivate them that gets them going. Some really respond well to encouragement and how to really get the best out of them. So there was a lot from teaching and coaching that I still do every day in the work that I do now.
Yeah, I love that, taking the time to get down on your followers' level and make sure that you understand where they're coming from, which is similar to the story you shared earlier. Mm-hmm. So as the 3rd generation leader of Chick-Fil-A, what has it been like to carry on your family's legacy while putting your own leadership style into practice?
Well, it's a real privilege, honestly, to think about what my grandfather started off. He was extremely poor. I don't know if anybody knows the story, but I won't go into all the details, but is extremely poor, lived in the first government housing in the state of Georgia. Dad was a complete bum. He had no respect. I even asked about his dad when he was in his 80s, and he just shut me off and said, I won't talk about him. I had no respect for him. And so there was some real rough environment growing up. And they couldn't afford to go to the doctor. He had a brother walking around poking a stick in the ground, stuck in a crack, and the other stabbed in his stomach, and they couldn't afford to take him to the doctor, so he died at 6 from stomach infections. Sister was confined to a wheelchair because they couldn't afford the medications for polio, so he grew up in a really bad situation. But what he overcame, there were so many other things that he overcame in life to kind of get to where he is today, or where he was. But along those lines, he was so, because of what he grew up in, had such a deep sense to help others. And that's one of the biggest things I'm so grateful for, is just that legacy of wanting to build a great business so that we can use it to have a positive impact in the communities that we serve. And so I feel just a deep sense of responsibility to continue this. And just from the impact standpoint, the opportunities that we have to serve in communities. I did wrestle with it, honestly, probably the most during actually while I was here at Georgia for a year. Really struggled with it. I didn't realize, my parents never put pressure on me, but all the external pressure of hearing, you're a little bitty kid, all grown up, man, you've got big shoes to fill. How are you going to live up to what your granddad did? And I never thought about it, but I just built this life off of performance. And so there's a year where I struggled with it, because I felt like I had to have a 4.0, I had to do all these things, and started struggling with test anxiety, and it was just realizing I built my life off of this performance piece. But what was so good is I got some coaching through it and realized, man, I am uniquely made. God uniquely makes all of us, and that's good enough. I can learn from what my grandfather and my dad have done, but I'm my own unique person. And it's been very freeing since then. I've never had to think about it or worry about it, but just grateful for the heritage and the pride to be able to take this thing into the future, and realize that we're all created uniquely. And even if from a leadership standpoint, the business needs something different today than it did years ago. And years into the future, it's going to be a different leadership skill than I have. And so just for the season, I have to lean in and help and plug in the best I can.
I love that you also said that your parents gave you the opportunity to explore what you wanted first, going and teaching and figuring out if that was your true passion before you decided to come back to the business. I respect that, and I think it just fuels your passion for the company even more, knowing that you got to pick it on your own.
Exactly.
Chick-fil-A's values have been a major part of its identity and success, but like any large organization, you face backlash and criticism. As CEO, how do you balance staying firm to the company's core values while navigating an ever-changing landscape?
Well, for any business or nonprofit, any organization, there are aspects you've got to hold on to, and there's things you have to evolve and change. And so for any business organization, it's really important to have real clarity around your purpose and core values, because that should be a timeless element that doesn't change based on business ebbs and flows of what's going on. But there's other aspects that need to change. And so for us, our corporate purpose is really kind of our North Star, our anchor. And it really came about between the years 1980 and 1982. We really struggled business-wise. It's hard to think of interest rates being close to 20%, but interest rates at the time were around 20% getting there. The economy was struggling. We literally had gone from 100 restaurants to 200 restaurants in a 2-year period, which was not really smart growth, honestly, especially as we look back on it. We'd taken on a large amount of debt to build a corporate facility, so business was teetering. And so my grandfather and our senior team got away to try to figure out how we were going to get out of this. And then it spent the 2 days only answering one question: why are we doing this, or why are we in business? So we came away with our corporate purpose that states that we're in business to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us, and have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And so that is really our anchor. And then we think about our core values. We're purpose-driven, which drives the corporate purpose. We're here to serve. We're better together, and we pursue what's next. And so those are the things that just don't change. But as you think about business models, whether it's service channels like delivery and apps, new product features, taste profiles of what people want, all those things, you have to be so in tune with what the consumer wants and needs, and you have to change those. The danger for any business or organization, for any of us as we think about our own personal growth, is that as you get down the road and might have had success, it can be dangerous because you can start creating this protectionist mindset of, this is what got us here. We can't change these things. And as businesses, even those that have been at the very top of the game for years, if they don't evolve and change, they can miss the next big thing. And so it's just, it's incumbent upon all of us that we're constantly growing and learning in order to stay relevant for the future.
I love that, and I've seen the corporate purpose on the rock outside of the headquarters. I think it's something that all of your employees definitely hold close to their hearts, and I think having that purpose be the driving factor and then just doing tweaks to fit the consumer is truly what makes Chick-fil-A so magic. So how do you ensure Chick-fil-A's culture of service, quality, and community impact remains strong across all the different stores you have in the U.S.?
We got a couple of special guests. Where are our Chick-fil-A operators? I saw a couple of you. Would you just stand for a quick second? You're going to have to. I'll call you out. I know you're here. So these are some of our operators here at Athens, and that is really the magic sauce of what makes that happen from the hospitality and the overall service and experience. My grandfather, when he had 2 restaurants, dwarf houses, in the 1950s. The second one burned down in 1960. So he's down to 1 restaurant, and that's where he started playing around with an idea of a chicken sandwich. He had some friends that had gotten a contract with Delta, which is a smaller airline, and they said, hey, we've gotten this ability to serve meals on their planes, but we had these big chicken breasts, we can't do anything. Can you do anything with them? We'll give them to you for next to nothing. My grandfather always loved a deal, so if he's getting something for next to nothing, he's gonna make something of it. So he started playing around with this idea of a sandwich, and then eventually he tried to license the product. He tried all kinds of things that didn't work, and his sister said, you got to open up and try one more time selling those sandwiches. Just one more time, try to sell them. And so she actually, before he even agreed to it, started negotiating with the mall to get a lease. And so we ended up opening that. That was the first Chick-fil-A at Greenbrier Shopping Mall in 1967. But when he did that, he knew he didn't want to run more than 1 restaurant at a time because of how hard it was. He's going to have to find a way to replicate how he would want to be done. And so he came up with our operator model at that time. And so he selected Doris Williams, who ran a cafe at a school and was just real impressed with her. So she was our very first Chick-fil-A operator. And it's the magic because of our operators. We get about 140, 150,000 people apply every year, and we're open about 150, 160 stores a year. And so what makes it so special and unique is we are so intentional about who we select, because the people selection in business, you just can't underestimate how powerful it is in a good way, or it can be in a negative way. And so for that relationship for us, we spend, for somebody that gets selected, it's over a year-long interview process, because we're not only turning over the physical assets to someone, but we're turning over a name and reputation. And so it's just really, really important. But what makes it special is they've got to have a real skill, a lot of skills, but one in particular is just around developing people. We're really in the people business. We can teach somebody how to make a chicken sandwich, but our operators have to come to the table with really, really strong people skills because they're the ones that are just constantly investing and helping those teams grow and develop. And so they're the ones that make it special and create the service that we're known for.
I love that, and I got to experience that this past year when I went to Chick-fil-A's headquarters. I was touring the museum, and there was an operator and his whole team that got to visit. And there were storms in their hometown, and so Chick-fil-A brought them, got them a hotel, a nice place to stay, and they got to experience the headquarters. So it's really special. How do you, as CEO, stay connected with all of the different operators and make sure that they're continuing to, obviously we go through the selection process, but that they continue to uphold your standards?
We have staff in the field all the time. I'm in the field a lot, so personally travel a lot. So I'm in the field traveling pretty much every week somewhere. And so we map out, Dana that works with me, we map out, so we already got the date set for next year, all my travel, where I'll be traveling. And so we've got time now to go in and start looking at the cities that I've not been to in a while. So we'll start mapping those out over the next couple of weeks. So very intentional about where I'm going and why. But it's a lot of time in the field because I've got to hear and see firsthand what's going on in the business. And I have a lot of people that call. Everybody's got my cell phone number, email, call, text. So a lot of conversations with operators about what's going on, how we can help serve. Because that's a big thing for us is it is a partnership. There's unique things that we can help figure out and solve on our side, on the support center side, that having that real-time feedback is so helpful to know what do we need to adapt and change, whether it's technologies or different things that we need to evolve. But having that really close connection is really, really important. You have to be more systemized at it as the organization grows to be more intentional, because I can't go visit every single restaurant in the course of the year.
Yeah, it's so important to make sure that they don't become siloed.
Right.
Make sure they're connected. Very impressive. For 11 consecutive years, according to the American Customer Satisfaction Index, Chick-fil-A has been voted America's favorite fast food restaurant, and mine as well. From your perspective, what drives that level of customer loyalty?
Oh, a lot of it comes down to trust. As you think about your experiences with other businesses or brands and why you go back, it really starts with the level of trust, because there's a trust of knowing I'm going to get a good product. Hopefully, you're going to get a good product, good experience, hospitality, you want it to be quick, all those basics that you're looking for. And if you get that repeatedly, then it builds that level of trust. And so that's what we're really, really focused on is, we call it our Winning Hearts Everyday strategy. So there's two parts to it. There's the operational excellence side, and there's the hospitality, what we call second mile service. And so we feel like if we can get just maniacal about the details of this business and just look for those 1% differences that we can improve and grow, then that creates a better operational experience so that you're going to get hot food consistently, you're going to get friendly service consistently, and as that happens consistently with some really second mile service, we feel like that's where the magic happens. And so you can look at transaction counts and drive people to a restaurant once, which you could get a pop in sales potentially. But we really look at the healthiest way to grow a business is through frequency. Because if a customer's coming back again and again, then you're doing some good things. And that means there's that level of trust that's there that they've built with you. And so that's what we try to uphold more than anything, is that we honor that trust and we strengthen that trust that we have with customers, because that's how you preserve and grow a brand over time.
I love that, the consistency, being able to walk into Chick-Fil-A anywhere across the country and know you're going to have a great experience is very special. So as the company grows, I know you touched on this a little bit talking about innovations. How do you balance maintaining a consistent customer experience while innovating in areas like menu development and technology?
Oh, it's a lot of fun working through that. We have a lot going on from an innovation standpoint, and it goes back to one of our core values. We pursue what's next. And as a business, you have to constantly be looking towards the future. We've got so many teams working on some unbelievable stuff right now. And so we have two big showcases a year. We do one in the spring and one in the fall. One was yesterday, where a lot of these teams will present and show us, our executive teams, what they've been working on and some of the innovation that's happening. And it's fascinating. I wish I could share some of the things that we're kind of working on. But the way that technology is going to have interface and improve just the overall operations is going to be really, really fascinating. We're looking at things such as, the way that machines talk to each other, communicate, and taking in not only data as we think about from a sales standpoint, data historically to predict what's going to happen that day, but it's also taking in data from the environment around of what's happened in the community, to having all that integrated with camera systems around the restaurant to see what type of cars are pulling in. Is that a bus or is that a car, to start kind of helping us figure out how much food needs to get prepared, to also have an automated to where that's backing up on the supply chain, knowing what food needs to be backfilled on the delivery side to get that store stocked again. So all the different aspects of those things to so many more things I think are going to be just fascinating. But what we won't do is we won't substitute technology with human interface. And so we really want to do automation, a lot of these things to make the operations better, to make it a better guest experience. But we really want to use the people side to still have that hospitality side. Now, if you want delivery or go other places to get it, you don't need that, that's totally fine. But for those that are coming to the restaurant, we still want to have that face-to-face interaction.
I love that emphasis on the customers and having that full experience, but making it maybe a little bit better with technology.
Yeah.
Can you touch a little bit more on menu development? I know you guys just came out with the new pretzel bun. What are some different things that you have coming there?
Oh man, you're trying to get me to release things about next year.
Or you can talk more about the process.
But we have approved some things for summer and fall next year. So we just approved some of those items, which are really, really good. We did have a big hit with our pineapple dragon fruit this spring. And so it is one of those things, again, where we're having to constantly test and see what's working from a consumer standpoint. We do all kind of market research, taste panels and those kind of things that look at flavors and what are trends and what people want. Sometimes we'll test things like this where it's a limited time, and potentially some of those will end up being permanent items. But where we're really balanced on that is we feel like it's important to have a real simple menu, so that it's from a customer experience standpoint, it's just easier to understand the menu. You can get it too robust. And so it's a hard balance to get that right. So we kind of have the philosophy, if we're going to put a new permanent item on, we're taking one off. And so that's the trade-off we have to make. And so that's the discipline we've put on ourselves. And so, there's some more fun flavors coming.
I'm excited. I love that you guys hold your food to such a high standard. Are there any innovations in operations, service, or marketing that you're particularly proud of in the past years?
Within the last couple of years, I would say one was just with COVID, just how quick we pivoted. There were a lot of tools and things that we'd been working on that just happened to play into our hand. We'd really invested a whole lot in the mobile app because we really did feel that people were going to want food where they are, and that was just coming. So we were prepared for it. But again, it comes back to our operators. They're incredible in the fact of how fast they were able to pivot and the agility to make the changes needed to take on such a challenging situation like that and to adapt. And so I just credit our operators again for their agility and how fast they adapt, evolve, and change. And then we just try to help support it along the way. But I was really proud of the way we handled and helped us get through COVID in particular.
Yeah, that was definitely something that was very unexpected. So to be able to come out on the other side and have your business booming is very impressive. I have to ask, as technology continues to evolve, how do you see AI or other emerging tools supporting Chick-fil-A's operations, customer experience, or decision-making, while also preserving the personal touch and values-driven culture you've talked about?
Well, I gave an example a minute ago just around AI and how it's going to impact, I think, the restaurant. We're seeing that as well just on the corporate side as well. You look at data and all the different ways that we can use data. Roles, there's position changes that will change of being able to use AI. You might not have to have certain roles in the business. And so that's just an evolution that's taken place that we're constantly looking at as well. But it is important to stay up on those things because it's coming and going to have a huge impact in the business.
Mm-hmm. And I like how you've talked about before, continuing to emphasize that you're people focused in your business. And
exactly.
The tech just drives innovation. In ILA, we discuss values heavily, specifically their role in our future careers and our personal lives. Do you have 2 or 3 core values that help define you as a leader?
I would say first is just my faith. That drives more than anything. And I strive to live a life that reflects the way that Christ lived. And that is huge for me personally. That's a big driver. So my faith is really important. Service, I would say, is second in the way that I just want to plug in and help, whether it's in the business, in the community, but just the aspect of, I feel that from a leadership standpoint, it's a service role. No matter where you are in the organization, you're trying to help the overall purpose get to a greater place. And so I just see my role that I'm in now is just to kind of help serve our operators or help and serve our community. So the act of service is a really, really key a piece to it. And then a state of curiosity. I love to learn. I love to think about the future, where things are going. I love studying family businesses. I'm a business junkie where it comes to studying business history and other family businesses because there's so much to learn on what the things have done well that we could do or things that we've got to avoid, like the plague that other families have done. So that state of curiosity in learning and thinking about the future, I think, is important, and it's a big part of my ethos.
I love that. So in 2023, Chick-fil-A announced plans to expand into Europe and Asia by 2030, and I know you've started doing some things this year. As the company expands internationally, how do you ensure that Chick-fil-A's culture and values remain consistent while also adapting to different global markets and cultures?
So we're gradually starting to get into other countries. We're excited. There's a lot of growth opportunities just domestically for us to continue to grow here. We've got a little over 3,200 restaurants in 48 states, and so there's still a lot of growth here. But we do know that at some point there'll be some saturation, and so we want to get way ahead of that, and we do want to get the chance to serve in other countries. And so we've done a lot of research, and so we are in the process of opening in 2 new countries. We're currently in Canada, and then we also learned a lot through our expansion to Puerto Rico. It's U.S. territory, but just having to ship and all the different pieces, we've learned so much. So we're in the process of getting some stores open in London and then also in Singapore. That'll both happen later this year. It wasn't intended that both are going to happen in the same year. Our original plan was have a little bit more space, but it's just the way things have fallen. We don't take on outside partners, and so it's a big investment for us, people and dollar resources, to go into a country. That's an inordinate amount of work to get supply chains set up and so many things just to get a business off the ground. But from a timing, it's just all collided into this 1 year. But we're excited about the opportunity to serve people who've been deprived of Chick-fil-A for all these years and look for ways to plug in and impact the communities. But we'll still use our operator model. And so some countries have to adapt and change aspects of it based on different regulatory environments, the way that they operate. But we really try to keep the spirit of it the same. So we've already selected our first 2 operators for UK and for the one in Singapore, have gone through training, and so really excited about it. And we've got offices now in Canada, London, and in Singapore. And we spend an inordinate amount of time on the onboarding, the orientation side of it. So they spend a lot of time at our office in Atlanta. We have a lot of people traveling to those offices and spending time. And so we do everything we can to really integrate the culture of what we want to be replicated in these other countries.
Very exciting, and I'm excited to see how Chick-fil-A's values spread across the world, because I think everyone could use a little more Chick-fil-A.
Thank you.
Many college students, including myself, know that it can be difficult at times to balance the various organizations we're involved in. How do you balance leading Chick-fil-A, serving the community, and your own personal life?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I've got somebody that helps me on that. She's a magic maker on the timepiece, but it's the most important thing to do is manage your time. It's the most precious resource we have is our time, and it's going to get sucked up with something. And my calendar is going to be slammed with a full slate. And I've got to make sure, and we all have to make sure, am I doing what only I can do? And so we plan it out. And so it's planned out a year in advance. I'll break it up in 15-minute increments that are color-coded based on categories. And so then we look at it monthly. And I'll set percentages of how I want to do it over the course of the year. And then we'll make some adjustments, but really, really look at those to make sure I'm spending time where only I can spend, because I've got responsibilities here, like you said. I've got 4 young kids that are very involved in sports, and I want to be a present dad. I don't want to be an absent dad and look back and realize, man, I lost their whole childhood. I wasn't around. Because this business or anything as you start getting in your career can be a vortex. It'll suck up every moment that you'll allow it to. And so just put some parameters in place. Like I won't go do public speaking events on the weekends because I can be around with my kids and see their sporting events. It inevitably, with as many operators and staff, there's funerals, so there's probably 10, 12 Saturdays or Sundays I'm going to funerals and those sort of things. So just some disciplines to put in place. I'll start a meeting as early as anybody wants to meet. I'll have some start 5:30 to 6 if needed, but I want to be home for dinner if I'm not traveling. And so I'll really discipline. And when I get home, I'll put my phone on. I don't have it with me. I'll put it over because I get distracted. But I'll put it on ring, and I'll set it on the counter. And if I'll only answer it during that hour and a half of dinner, if Susanna Frost, who's our president here, calls, that means we got some uh-ohs that need to work on, or if one of our operators. But outside of that, I just don't answer it so I can spend that time. And then I'll get back on and work for a little bit afterwards. But you got to have those disciplines. Know how you're spending your time and be real clear about what you're wanting to focus on. I think it's important.
Yeah, and I love how you're so intentional about putting guardrails up to make sure that you protect your family time and your personal time to make sure you're fully recharged to lead the business correctly. Looking ahead, what is your vision for Chick-fil-A over the next 10 years, both in terms of growth and impact on communities?
As we look at growth, we'd look at it from the standpoint, I don't set goals of like, man, I want to be in 30 countries by this point of time or reach this $1 billion in sales. We do look out to predict where we think we're going to be from a forecasting standpoint. And we'll set some stretches sometimes beyond some of those things. But so much of it's needed in order to kind of figure out to solve problems in order to get there. There's a lot of things where I was mentioning yesterday that we're looking at. We're having to create our own technologies or our own equipments because there's nothing that's available to solve the problems that we have. And so it can take years to create these things from scratch. But it's important to be able to do. Now, I was about to say something about technology. What was your question again?
No worries. I was talking about the next 10 years.
Oh, next 10 years,
yes,
okay.
Sir.
So just excited about a lot of the innovation side of things and around growth, but we don't set real big goals from a growth standpoint. But my hope over the next 10 years is that we are better than we are today, that customers are more loyal, that we have a higher frequency rate than we have today. And then from an impact standpoint, it's something that I've really gotten convicted on over the last year, and I've really started talking about it with other CEOs in the industry over the last just couple of weeks. But I just feel a real heart that in business, we can be competitors in the marketplace, but we can partner together to make a difference. And it's just getting deep in me that there's just huge opportunities for us let's come together and work on things together. Our country needs it so bad. And I've thought about it a lot for our industry and food, and the fact that we've got 48 million people that are food insecure. To think about the number of kids, that's 14 million kids that don't know where their next meal is going to come from. And there's so much food that's getting thrown away and all kind of stuff that's just a waste. And so starting to have conversations with other CEOs in the industry of like, let's come together and work on this. There's just a huge need. And we can be competitors in the marketplace. Let's partner together to make a difference. And so my hope is that we're able to start partnering together with other organizations to work on some of these big things to make a difference.
I love that. Well, thank you, Mr. Cathy, for your wisdom and insight and sharing your experiences with us today. We now have a few minutes to answer questions from the audience.
Hello, my name is Emily Taylor, and I'm a Leonard Leadership Scholar studying marketing and international business. Looking back at your time at UGA and now leading a global business, what is one leadership lesson that you wish you had learned earlier that you think would be valuable for some of the students and young leaders in this room?
Oh man, there's so many. I gave you one earlier about asking about others first before you jump into it. I will say this. This is one that I've really learned over the last 4 or 5 years, is how important it is that you take care of yourself. You can grind it out in which is sometimes necessary for a season, but I've had to learn so much about how my brain thinks and how the brain works and just the neuroplasticity of the brain and how it can change and evolve. And if we're in a constant state of intense fight or flight state, you're not going to function as well as an individual. And as you get into leadership, our biggest contributions is our thoughts and perspectives that we bring. And so I've learned so much just about the fact of cortisol levels. And so my summary is take care of yourself spiritually, mentally, and physically. And the importance of all those will help you lead at a higher level. And so I'll study my sleep. I'll look at the amount of foods that I'm eating. If I get in real stressful times, I'm making sure to cut out any sugars and carbs, because all that does is feed cortisol levels. And when I'm in those intense times, then I really jack up high cardio work to really try to reduce the cortisol levels. So there's a lot of those things of making sure my brain's functioning at an optimal level that I've really been trying to study and learn over these last 5 years that I think helps as a leader be a little bit better. So my summary is just taking care of yourself in those 3 areas I think is really, really important that I never even really thought of. I exercised and tried to eat well and stuff, but I didn't really realize the impact it'd have on my thinking capabilities.
We can take another question if anyone else has one. Yes, go ahead.
How do you measure the success, and what is the biggest struggle you see with Red Wagon?
Say it again? How do you measure success?
Of Red Wagon, and what is the biggest struggle you see with Red Wagon?
With Red Wagon. So Red Wagon is, it's an innovation side that we have inside Chick-Fil-A, and we're just working on some new concepts and ideas. And part of it goes back to, as I mentioned earlier, one of my areas of emphasis is making sure that we got a healthy multi-generational family business. And so it's just important that we are constantly evolving and changing. We're susceptible to the same market force as any other business is. And we want to do everything we can to preserve and make sure that we've got some type of business we can use into the future to have a positive impact in communities that we serve. And so we are ideating on some new ideas and thoughts and trying to come up with some new ways that we can build off of our core competencies to get into new types of businesses. Yes.
What are your favorite books?
Favorite books? I consume a lot of books, My absolute favorite book that I've ever read was Snowball, the story of Warren Buffett. It's a long biography, but I became a Warren Buffett junkie when I was probably 13 years old, and I couldn't stop reading enough about it. And so that's my all-time favorite book. Some other ones, I'd say Built to Last and Good to Great. Jim Collins, I'm a big Jim Collins fan. So those would be some of my top 3 books, but I've got a long list I can give you if you want more books. But yeah, I read and listen to a ton of books.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chick-fil-A outperforms all the other companies, but works 6 out of 7 days of the week. Could you explain why they'll do that and if that was a difficult decision to make?
So why are we closed on Sunday, and how does that outperform competitors in 6 days versus 7? Just trying to repeat so everybody can hear it. That was something that from the very beginning my grandfather did, was close the business on Sunday. It was for a couple of reasons, honestly. One was he wanted to go to church. It was important to him. When he opened the business, it was he and his brother Ben. They started it together. Ben and another brother, the two of them, died in a plane crash after 18 months after being in business. So it was just down to my grandfather. It was open 24 hours a day. It was right across the street from the Ford automobile plant. And so he also needed a rest. And so he wanted to be able to go to church. He wanted his people to have rest as well, since they're open 24 hours a day. And it was just something we never changed. And it's just something that we feel is important for those that want to worship that they choose, if they want to have time off. But it's also nice for high school, college, or young people to know, hey, I'm not having to work all weekend. I at least get one of the weekend days off, which is nice. And we do think that it's good for consumers. You can go test the competitors out and realize how much more you like Chick-fil-A and come back on Monday.
We have time for one more question.
I'll let you pick. They all went up at the same time.
You can go in the red.
I'm not doing that.
What is the common trait amongst those who inspire you?
Common trait amongst those who inspire me. I would say that the biggest thing is it's about the impact that they're going to have in those that they serve. That's the biggest thing. Because for me, business, it's a mechanism to have an impact and serve those. We're here for such a short amount of time on earth, it's going to fly by. And you can build a business just to build a business, but that's such a fleeting thing. We've got so many needs around and ways that we can help. To me, that's the bigger thing, is to look for those opportunities. And I feel like for us, it's our mechanism to be able to do that is through business. And there's so many others, but for those that I find the most inspiring or have been able to use what they've been given in a way that really makes a difference in the world.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cathy,
Thank you.
for your thoughtful and inspiring remarks and for visiting with us this morning. We want to present you with a small token of our appreciation as a thank you for being with us today. Please join me in thanking Mr. Cathy.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Go Dogs!
We would like to thank you all for attending the Fall 2025 Shoukry Leadership Speaker Series. Please mark your calendar for our upcoming Mason Public Leadership Lecture Series featuring Allison Ausband, Chief People Officer for Delta Airlines on Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Again, thank you for being here today.